Hey friends, it is Bridgie from Bougie Texas Barbecue, and today we are going to make some Mojo style spare ribs. Let's do it. So I have some St. Louis style spare ribs that I just need to remove the membrane. I know there's a big debate whether to remove the membrane or don't remove it. It really doesn't matter. I am choosing to remove it, and there's really no easy way besides getting your fingers underneath that skin and just ripping it off. 9 times out of 10 it'll rip off completely, or it'll rip off like this. Of course, the day I decide to record, it'll rip off like this. But it really doesn't matter as long as you get it all off. Alright, so let's talk about the proper seasonings for a Mojo style rib. We're going to need an all-purpose seasoning, garlic salt, chili powder, and black coarse pepper. The combination of these seasonings is not only going to complement our Mojo marinade that we're using later into the cook, but they are also going to help build a pretty bark and create a well-balanced rib that I'll get more into later on during the cook. So why chili powder and black pepper? Well, as you know, black pepper definitely helps build bark, and as far as the chili powder, it's not only going to help with color, but it's going to add heat to our ribs. I'm a really big fan of La Lechonera's rubs and Mojo marinades, and today I'm using garlic salt versus garlic powder, and here's why. Their garlic salt has big chunks of salt flakes that help build a pretty bark, and as far as their Sazon, it always complements their Mojo marinade, which I'm also using today. I'm also not using a binder today. You can absolutely use a binder if you want to. I recommend an avocado oil or even olive oil versus mustard, just because we're already getting that vinegar from the Mojo marinade. Okay, so we got seasonings covered. Now it's time to head outside. You're going to want to preheat your smoker to 250 degrees. Once your smoker is up to temp, it's time to add the ribs. I chose to preheat my smoker after I seasoned my ribs so they could do a quick dry brine, and this is how they looked. As far as my charcoal and wood combo, I'm using lumped charcoal and mesquite wood chunks. We are going to smoke these low and slow 250 degrees for 2 hours. After 2 hours, it's time to wrap. I normally double wrap my ribs with brown sugar, butter, and honey, but I am going to sub it for La Lechonera's Mojo marinade and some all-natural agave nectar. These flavors not only complement each other, but they're going to keep the ribs moist and create a sticky, icky au jus, or glaze, whatever you want to call it. After adding a layer of agave nectar, make sure you give your Mojo bottle a good shake before layering it on top of the agave. Now you're going to grab your spare ribs and place them face down on top of your agave and Mojo marinade. And add another layer of agave and Mojo before wrapping your ribs nice and tight. This step can be messy, so make sure you use some heavy duty aluminum foil. Before placing that back onto the smoker, make sure your ribs didn't poke through so you don't lose none of the Mojo and you don't create a big mess inside your smoker. Alright guys, continue smoking face down for another hour and don't forget to rotate your ribs. After 1 hour, it's time to apply the boat method. The reason I'm applying the boat method versus just placing the ribs back onto the smoker without the foil is because I want to keep all that au jus and the ribs will continue smoking in the au jus. So I'm going to give y'all guys a quick look on how these ribs are looking. As you can see, the bones are starting to stick out. That's exactly where they should be. I'm also adding some cherry wood chunks into the smoker so it can help with color. Once your ribs are faced up, this step is optional, but you can add some of agave nectar on top. The reason I'm adding more agave is because the sugars in the actual agave are going to help caramelize the bark. We are going to continue smoking at 250 degrees for another 45 minutes to 1 hour, or until they're probe tender. My ribs are officially probe tender, so it's now time to take them off the smoker. I'm going to give y'all guys a quick look at these ribs before I take them inside to rest. And as you can see, the combination of the cherry wood at the end, our seasonings, and our agave plus the Mojo marinade did exactly what it's supposed to do. It gave our ribs a beautiful red bark. Now it's time to rest our ribs inside. I'm going to allow them to rest at room temperature for about 20 minutes before slicing. My rack of ribs are officially done resting. I'm going to do one thing before I get to slicing. I'm going to pour all that au jus that's sitting in the foil directly on top of my ribs. It's going to give my ribs a little extra kick of flavor and give it an extra sticky finish. Because let's be honest guys, who doesn't love a sticky rib? I'm just going to get this foil out of the way and I'm going to give you a quick look at the ribs before I get to slicing. It really did take me a long time to perfect ribs. The bones should be sticking out just like this. And the rack of ribs themselves should be flexible. If they're stiff, they're not done. If the bones are falling off without any pressure, they're overcooked. And when it comes to slicing, your knife should go in without any resistance. I like to flip the ribs over before slicing, mainly because rib bones are slightly turned, but don't worry, this will not ruin your bark. Once your ribs are nice and sliced, you can go ahead and turn them over and get to serving. And as you can see, my bark is still intact. Now there's really only one thing left to do, and that is to enjoy them. But how are you going to enjoy them since they are Mojo style ribs? Are you going to enjoy them traditionally, or are you going to enjoy them boneless? That decision is ultimately up to you. Well, that pretty much wraps up this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Let me know down below, how would you eat these Mojo style ribs? Till next time, guys.